The sound of my wife planning my murder over dessert wasn't what I expected to hear on our 15th anniversary week. Yet there I stood, frozen behind the decorative screen in my own restaurant, as she discussed poison options with her best friend between sips of sparkling water. I'm Marcus Blackwood, 42, owner of Provenance, currently the most sought-after reservation in Manhattan's competitive fine dining scene. 3 Michelin stars, a waiting list that stretches into next year, and the kind of critical acclaim that most restaurateurs spend their entire careers chasing. What can I say? I've always had a talent for creating experiences people would kill for. Turns out my wife Rebecca took that concept a bit too literally. It started innocuously enough. Post-election chaos had finally settled down with Trump back in office, and New York's elite were emerging from their political hibernation, eager to see and be seen again. Provenance was booked solid every night, and I was putting in 18-hour days managing everything from prima donna chefs to impossible-to-please critics. Rebecca had been distant. Nothing unusual there. Our marriage had settled into a comfortable routine years ago. I built my empire. She enjoyed the lifestyle it provided, and we occupied the same physical space without truly connecting. That Tuesday, I was doing my usual evening rounds, checking in with VIP guests while my staff executed the choreographed dance of high-end service with practiced precision. Rebecca had come in with her friend Vanessa, a weekly tradition I encouraged, partly because it made her happy, and partly because it gave me an evening free from the strained small talk that had become our primary form of communication. They were seated in the corner alcove, technically our worst table because it was furthest from the action, but Rebecca preferred it for its privacy. The irony isn't lost on me now. I was passing behind the decorative screen that separated their nook from the service corridor when I heard my name. "Marcus won't suspect a thing," Rebecca said, her voice carrying that particular cadence it got when she was excited about something. The man is so predictable it's almost comical. I froze mid-step. Eavesdropping isn't typically my style. I'm a successful restaurateur precisely because I respect people's privacy, even when they're in my establishment. But something in her tone made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Are you sure about this, Becca?" Vanessa's voice was lower, concerned. "It seems extreme." A soft laugh from my wife, one I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "What's extreme is spending another day trapped in this marriage. Besides, do you have any idea how much Provenance is worth now? Especially after that profile in the New Yorker?" My chest tightened. We had a prenup, of course. I wasn't an idiot. But it had been drawn up when Provenance was just a concept. Before the awards, before the expansion into the luxury food product line, before the cookbook deals and television appearances. "The prenup," Vanessa began, "is irrelevant if he's dead," Rebecca finished matter-of-factly, as if discussing a weekend weather forecast rather than my mortality. "Accidental death voids most of the limitations. I get it all. The restaurant group, the apartment, the house in the Hamptons. God knows I've earned it, playing the supportive wife all these years while he screwed his way through half the hostesses in Manhattan." That stung, not least because it wasn't true. I'd been faithful, despite opportunities that came with my position. The restaurant business is built on temptation, but I'd always considered myself above that particular cliché. I still think divorce, Vanessa tried again, would get me maybe 30% and he'd fight for every penny. Rebecca's voice hardened. "No, this is cleaner. The ingredients arrived yesterday. Tetrodotoxin, completely untraceable if done correctly. It'll look like a sudden heart attack or stroke. Given his stress levels and the hours he works, no one will question it." Tetrodotoxin. My mind raced through what I knew about it. Derived from pufferfish, one of the deadliest natural toxins on the planet. No known antidote. I'd once featured a properly prepared fugu dish at an exclusive event, requiring special licensing and a chef trained specifically in its preparation. The irony wasn't lost on me. "When?" Vanessa asked, her voice barely audible. "Tomorrow night. Our anniversary dinner." Rebecca's tone was almost cheerful now. 15 years of marriage deserves a special celebration, don't you think? I've already told him I want to cook for him at home. A rare occurrence that he'd never suspect. The perfect dose in his favorite dish, a glass or two of wine to mask any subtle flavors, And by morning, I'm a grieving widow rather than a bitter ex-wife. The rest of their conversation faded into background noise as blood rushed in my ears. 15 years together, and my wife was discussing my murder with the casual efficiency of someone planning a surprise party. What haunted me most wasn't the betrayal. It was how little emotion seemed attached to it. I wasn't even worth hating. I was simply an obstacle to be removed. I somehow made it through the rest of the evening on autopilot, avoiding Rebecca and Vanessa's table entirely by claiming an emergency with a wine shipment. When Rebecca came home later that night, I pretended to be asleep, my mind racing through options while my body remained perfectly still beside the woman who was plotting to kill me. Sleep evaded me entirely. I lay awake, cataloging every moment of our marriage, searching for signs I'd missed. When had her indifference turned to homicidal intent? Was it a gradual erosion, or had there been a specific turning point? I thought about the prenup, the restaurant's success, the life insurance policy she'd insisted we upgrade last year. Each memory took on sinister new dimensions in light of what I'd discovered. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. I wouldn't run. I would turn the tables. Morning, Rebecca murmured as she padded into our kitchen, wrapped in the silk robe I'd bought her in Milan. You left early. I handed her a cup of coffee prepared exactly as she liked it, a habit I couldn't seem to break despite my newfound knowledge. Early meeting with the accountant, end of quarter stuff. She sipped the coffee, studying me over the rim of the mug. Had she always looked at me with such clinical detachment, or was I just noticing it now? Don't forget about dinner tonight. I've got something special planned. I'm sure you do, I thought, but managed a smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Our anniversary only comes once a year. 15 years, she mused. Hard to believe, isn't it? Time flies when you're having fun, I replied, the banality of our exchange almost surreal given the circumstances. I kissed her cheek, the domestic gesture of a man with no idea his hours were numbered, and left for the restaurant. My first call was to my attorney, who listened to my story with professional stoicism before arranging an immediate meeting. My second was to a private investigator I'd used years ago to vet potential investors, a discreet, thorough man who understood the value of urgency. My third was to my head chef, canceling my evening plans at the restaurant. By noon, the PI had already delivered his initial findings. Rebecca had withdrawn $50,000 from her personal account 2 weeks ago. Cash, no digital trail. 3 days later, she'd made contact with someone whose online presence consisted entirely of forum discussions about untraceable poisons. Her internet history revealed searches for tetrodotoxin detection autopsy and mimicking natural death. But the real revelation came when the PI dug deeper into her communications. Rebecca wasn't just planning to kill me. She was planning to leave the country afterward with someone. The texts were careful, using coded language, but the pattern was clear. My wife had a partner in more ways than one. Any idea who? I asked the PI as we sat in my attorney's office. He slid a photograph across the desk. Taken yesterday outside, a hotel in Midtown. The image showed Rebecca entering the lobby, then another of her in a passionate embrace with a man in the elevator. I recognized him immediately. James Harrington, my financial advisor. The man who managed not only my personal wealth but the entire restaurant group's accounts. How long? I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Based on the hotel records, at least 2 years, the PI replied. Always the same room, always paid in cash. 2 years. While I was expanding the business, working 16-hour days to build something lasting, they'd been planning my replacement. First in our bed, now in my life entirely. My attorney cleared his throat. We should contact the police immediately. This is attempted murder. No, I interrupted. Not yet. Both men looked at me with varying degrees of concern. She hasn't actually done anything yet, I explained. It's all preparation, intent. Her word against mine, and she'll claim I'm making it up to avoid a divorce settlement. But the evidence is circumstantial. The poison could be for something else. The money could be for a surprise gift. The affair, I trailed off. That's real enough, but hardly criminal. The truth was I had a different kind of justice in mind. My attorney didn't like it, but he helped me put certain protections in place. Emergency transfers of critical assets, updated will, documentation of everything we'd discovered. The UAPI promised to keep surveillance on Rebecca for the remainder of the day, tracking her movements and gathering additional evidence. I returned to Providence for lunch service, moving through the dining room like a ghost in my own life. Everything looked the same: the carefully curated lighting, the subtle background music, the choreographed service. Yet everything had fundamentally changed. I found myself studying each diner, wondering if any of them were also sitting across from someone plotting their demise. In the kitchen, I pulled aside Emilio, my head chef, and the only member of my staff I trusted implicitly. We'd come up together in the cutthroat New York restaurant scene, and he'd been with me since Providence was just a business plan scribbled on bar napkins. I need something special prepared, I told him in the privacy of my office. For a dinner, tonight. His eyebrows rose. Emilio knew I rarely cooked at home and never requested takeaway from the restaurant for personal use. Anniversary? Exactly. I handed him a list. Can you have this ready by 6? He scanned the ingredients, professional curiosity overtaking his surprise. This is, unusual. Not your typical anniversary dinner. It's a special occasion, I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. 15 years deserve something memorable. At 5:30, I left the restaurant with an elegant bag containing the carefully packed dishes Emilio had prepared, stopping only to pick up a bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild 2010, Rebecca's favorite, reserved for truly special occasions. Our apartment was filled with the scent of cooking when I arrived, rich, complex aromas that reminded me of why I'd fallen in love with food in the first place. Rebecca had transformed our dining room, setting the table with our finest china, crystal stemware catching the light from tapered candles. Right on time, she smiled, taking the wine with an appreciative nod. I've got everything almost ready. I held up my bag. I brought a little something from Provenance. Couldn't resist having Emilio prepare a few of your favorites. A flash of annoyance crossed her features before she smoothed it away. You didn't need to do that. I wanted to cook for you. We can have both, I replied easily. A true feast for 15 years together. She hesitated before nodding. I'll plate mine, you plate yours? Perfect. In the kitchen, I watched her from the corner of my eye as she attended to several pots on the stove. Her movements were precise, almost clinical, as she carefully plated what appeared to be my favorite dish, coq au vin, the recipe she'd learned on our honeymoon in France. The significance wasn't lost on me, a culinary callback to happier times now weaponized. I arranged Emilio's creations alongside hers, a harmless-looking dinner to the casual observer, a battlefield to those who knew better. Wine, I offered, presenting the opened bottle. Rebecca nodded, watching intently as I poured 2 glasses. I handed her one, raising mine in a toast. To 15 unforgettable years. And to new beginnings, she added with a smile that now seemed predatory rather than affectionate. We clinked glasses. I brought mine to my lips but didn't drink, merely wetting them while watching her take a generous sip. At the table, Rebecca positioned our plates with careful deliberation, her coq au vin in front of my place setting, a delicate sea bass before hers. Shall we switch? I suggested lightly. I'm actually in the mood for fish tonight. Her face froze momentarily before she recovered. But I made the coq au vin especially for you. It's your favorite. And I appreciate the thought, I said, maintaining an even tone. But Emilio prepared this sea bass with a new technique I've been wanting to try. We can share both, can't we? The calculation was visible in her eyes, weighing options, considering implications. If she refused too strenuously, she'd reveal her hand. If she agreed, her plan was derailed. Of course, she finally said, her smile tight. Though I spent hours on that coq au vin. And I'll have some, I assured her, serving myself a small portion alongside the sea bass. You should try it too. Tell me if it meets your standards. I watched as she reluctantly took a small portion of the dish she'd prepared, her movement stiff with barely contained frustration. We ate in silence for several moments, the tension vibrating between us like a plucked string. "How was your day?" she eventually asked, falling back on the safe territory of mundane conversation. "Illuminating," I replied. "Yours?" "Busy. Just errands and preparations for tonight." She gestured vaguely with her fork, not meeting my eyes. "Did those errands include meeting James at the peninsula at 2:15? I asked casually, as if inquiring about the weather. Rebecca's fork clattered against her plate. "What?" "James Harrington. Our financial advisor. The man you've been sleeping with for the past 2 years? That James." I took a deliberate bite of the sea base. Emilio outdid himself with this, by the way. The citrus beurre blanc is exceptional. The color drained from her face. "You've been having me followed?" "Only since yesterday," I admitted. "After I overheard your conversation with Vanessa at the restaurant, the one about tetrodotoxin and how my death would void the prenup restrictions." For a moment she seemed genuinely speechless, a rarity in our 15 years together. Then her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before, a cold calculation that made me wonder if I'd ever known her at all. "You're making that up," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" I set down my fork. "Where did you get the poison, Rebecca? Was it James who connected you with the seller, or did you find that resource on your own?" "The internet searches suggest the latter. You always were thorough in your research." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This is insane. I'm not having this conversation." "Sit down," I said quietly. It wasn't a shout, not even particularly forceful, but something in my tone made her comply. "We're not finished yet." "There's nothing to finish," she hissed. "You're paranoid, Marcus. This is exactly why our marriage is failing. You see conspiracies everywhere. In the left drawer of your vanity, there's a vial labeled as homeopathic. Remedy," I continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Purchased from a man named DeVries who operates primarily on the dark web. The same man you met in Central Park 3 days ago, wearing your blue coat and that ridiculous oversized hat you think provides anonymity." Her eyes widened fractionally, confirmation enough. "The $50,000 cash withdrawal was a nice touch," I added. "Untraceable. Just like the poison you selected. Just like the heart attack or stroke it's designed to mimic." I smiled thinly. "Unfortunately for you, I'm not the only one who knows how to be thorough." "What do you want?" she asked, dropping. "All pretense." "Money? Is that it? Name your price." The echo of my earlier conversation with the PI was almost amusing. "What I want," I said carefully, "is to understand when I became so insignificant to you that my death seemed like a reasonable solution to your unhappiness." "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed. "This isn't about you. My murder isn't about me." I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. "Please enlighten me." "It's about freedom," she said, an edge of desperation creeping into her voice. "Do you have any idea what it's like living in your shadow? Being Marcus Blackwood's wife? While you build your precious empire, I haven't existed as my own person in years. So divorce me," I countered. "Take your 30%, which, by the way, would still make you a very wealthy woman, and start over. Why poison?" Rebecca's laugh was hollow. 30% is an insult after 15 years, and you'd fight for every penny, dragging it out for years just to punish me. "You don't know that," I said. Though she wasn't entirely wrong. I would have fought, not out of spite, but principle. "You never even tried, because I know you," she spat. "Your pride wouldn't allow a simple, clean break. You'd rather burn it all down than let me walk away with anything meaningful." There was a grain of truth there that stung more than I wanted to admit. I'd built Provenance from nothing, sacrificed everything for its success. The thought of surrendering, even a portion, had always been unpalatable. "And James?" I asked, steering away from uncomfortable self-reflection. "Where does he fit into this plan?" A flicker of something. Guilt, perhaps. crossed her face. James understands me, sees me not as an accessory to his success, but as a person with my own dreams and ambitions. How romantic, I said dryly. And the fact that he manages all our finances, that's just coincidental to your deep connection? Her expression hardened again. Think what you want, it doesn't matter now anyway. No, I agreed, it doesn't, because here's what's going to happen next, Rebecca. You're going to sign the divorce papers my attorney has prepared. Papers that give you exactly 5% of our marital assets, which is 5% more than someone who attempted murder deserves. I'll contest it, she said immediately. Tell everyone you're abusive, controlling. With what evidence? I interrupted. Meanwhile, I have quite a collection. The poison in your vanity, the communications with DeVries, the $50,000 cash withdrawal, your internet search history, the recorded conversation with Vanessa, courtesy of Providence's security system, which you apparently forgot covers every inch of the restaurant, including your favorite private alcove. She paled visibly. You're bluffing. In answer, I pulled out my phone and played a crystal-clear recording. The prenup is irrelevant if he's dead. Accidental death voids most of the limitations. I get it all. Rebecca's own voice, unmistakable, damning. That's inadmissible, she stammered. Recorded without consent. Perhaps in court, I conceded, but in the court of public opinion, in your social circles, with potential future partners or employers, I think it speaks volumes. I leaned forward. I'm not interested in seeing you in prison, Rebecca. Despite everything, we shared 15 years, but I won't be your victim, and I won't be your meal ticket either. What about James? She asked after a long silence, her voice small. I smiled coldly. James has his own problems to worry about, namely the forensic audit currently underway, on all our accounts. Preliminary findings suggest he's been siphoning funds for years, small amounts, cleverly hidden, but detectable to the right experts. I suspect his interest in you intensified around the same time he realized I might eventually discover his embezzlement. Her face crumpled, the final pillar of her plan collapsing. You're lying. Check your phone, I suggested. He's probably trying to reach you right now, considering he was picked up for questioning an hour ago. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. James's name flashing on the screen. She stared at it, then at me, reality finally settling over, her like a shroud. The divorce papers are on the counter, I said, standing, along with a cashier's check for an amount that will allow you to disappear comfortably, if not luxuriously. A one-time offer that expires when I walk out that door. And if I refuse? She asked, a last flicker of defiance. Then I call Detective Ramirez, who's waiting rather patiently downstairs, and provide him with everything I have. The poison alone is enough for a substantial sentence, Rebecca. Add conspiracy to commit murder, and you're looking at decades, not years. She stared at the untouched coq au vin, then back at me. I never thought you'd be this calculating. I learned from the best, I replied without humor. You have 5 minutes to decide. I'll wait in the living room. I left her at the table, surrounded by the remnants of our anniversary dinner and the wreckage of her plans. In the living room, I texted the PI to confirm James was indeed in custody, then my attorney to prepare for either outcome of this confrontation. 4 minutes later, Rebecca appeared in the doorway, divorce papers in hand. I've signed them. I nodded, taking the documents without examining them. My attorney would verify everything later. The key to your new apartment is with the check. It's paid through the end of the year, which should give you time to figure out your next steps. That's it? She asked, something like disbelief in her voice. 15 years and it ends like this? It ended the moment you decided I was worth more dead than alive, I corrected her. This is just paperwork. She studied me for a long moment, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. I never thought you had this in you. Neither did I admitted. Life is full of surprises. After she left, a remarkably quiet departure for the end of a 15-year marriage, I returned to the dining room and surveyed the abandoned meal. The candles had burned down, wax pooling on the fine tablecloth she'd set so carefully. The wine sat mostly untouched, a $200 bottle now destined for the drain. I pulled out my phone and dialed Emilio. "It's done," I told him when he answered. "And you're okay?" he asked, the concern evident in his voice. He was one of the few people who knew the full story, not just Rebecca's plan but mine as well. "I'm fine," I assured him, though I wasn't sure if it was true. "The restaurant?" "Saturday night busy," he replied. Table 7 sent compliments to the chef for the halibut. The mundane update was strangely comforting, a reminder that regardless of personal upheaval, some things remained constant. Service continued. Guests were fed. Life went on. "I'll be in tomorrow," I said. "Regular time." "Take the day," Emilio suggested. "We've got it covered." But the thought of staying in the apartment surrounded by the evidence of my unraveled marriage was unbearable. "I need to work," I said simply. He understood, as he always did. "Then I'll see you at prep." After hanging up, I carefully packed the divorce papers and made one last sweep of the apartment, collecting anything I couldn't bear to leave behind. It wasn't much, some clothes, a few books, photos from before Rebecca when my family was still alive. Everything else could be replaced or simply abandoned. Downstairs, Detective Ramirez was waiting in an unmarked car as promised. "She signed," I told him, handing over copies of everything. The evidence of the poison plot, the divorce agreement, the financial documentation. He nodded, professional and unreadable. "And you're sure about this? Once we close the file, reopening would be complicated." "I'm sure," I confirmed. "She's been punished enough." What I didn't say was that prison seemed almost redundant for someone who would now live with the dual humiliations of a failed murder plot and the knowledge that her lover had been using her just as surely as she'd been using me. The detective studied me for a moment before nodding. "Your attorney has my number if you change your mind. And Marcus, consider a security system for wherever you end up next, just in case." I thanked him and walked away, heading not toward another waiting car but into the November night. The city was adorned with early Christmas decorations, the air crisp with the promise of winter. For the first time in years, perhaps for the first time ever, I had no specific destination, no obligations, no expectations. 6 months later, Providence remains the most difficult reservation in Manhattan. I still work the room nightly, greeting guests and ensuring every detail meets our exacting standards. But something fundamental has shifted, not just in my personal life, but in my relationship with the restaurant itself. I've started training a successor, Emilio's daughter, Maya, who has her father's talent and a business acumen that rivals my own. I've established a foundation that provides culinary scholarships to underprivileged youth. I've even started cooking again, not just overseeing menus, but actually working the line once a week, reconnecting with the passion that started this journey. As for Rebecca, I hear she's in Arizona now, working at a wellness retreat. The irony isn't lost on me, the woman who once plotted death now guiding others toward better health. James wasn't as fortunate. The embezzlement charges stuck, carrying a significant sentence given the amounts involved and his fiduciary duty. Occasionally I think about that anniversary dinner, the elaborate plans on both sides, the careful choreography of attack and counterattack. In my darker moments, I wonder if there's much difference between Rebecca's methodology and my own. She chose poison. I chose legal and financial destruction. Both sought to eliminate a problem permanently. But there is a difference, and it's the one I hold on to when doubt creeps in. I gave her a choice. A terrible, humiliating choice, certainly, but a choice nonetheless. One she denied me when she decided my death was an acceptable solution to her unhappiness. Last week, a food critic asked what keeps me motivated after achieving everything possible in the restaurant world. I told him something that seemed to surprise him in its simplicity. Every meal is a second chance, a fresh start, an opportunity to create something better than what came before. He thought I was talking about cuisine. Perhaps I was. But as I watched him enjoy the tasting menu, each dish carefully crafted, precisely timed, building upon the last toward a memorable conclusion, I couldn't help but see the parallel to life itself. We're all just trying to create something worth experiencing, something that leaves an impression. Sometimes we fail spectacularly. Sometimes we succeed beyond our wildest dreams. But it's the attempt that matters, the willingness to risk disappointment in pursuit of something extraordinary. Tonight, as I move through Provenance's dining room, I notice a couple celebrating what appears to be an anniversary. They lean toward each other across the table, fingers intertwined beside their wine glasses, speaking in the intimate shorthand of the truly connected. I approve their complimentary dessert, adding a special chocolate course not on the regular menu. Congratulations, I tell them, meaning it sincerely. Here's to many more years together. They thank me, beaming with the particular joy of people who can't believe their good fortune in each other in this moment, in this place I've created. As I walk away, I feel something unexpected. Not envy, not bitterness, but a quiet appreciation for having witnessed something genuine in a world so often defined by performance. Perhaps that's the final lesson in all this, the ability to recognize authenticity, whether in relationships or in the perfect sear on a scallop. To acknowledge both the beauty and brutality of life's offerings. To understand that sometimes the most exquisite experiences come with the highest costs. I return to the kitchen, rolling up my sleeves to help plate the final courses of the evening. Tomorrow we'll do it all again. Another service, another opportunity to create something memorable. Another choice to move forward rather than remain poisoned by the past. After all, in both restaurants and relationships, the true test isn't in the elaborate preparation or presentation. It's in what remains when everything else is stripped away. In my case, it wasn't love or even mutual respect, but something far more valuable. The unshakable knowledge of exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. And that, as they say in the business, is worth the price of admission.